Miami Police Lieutenant Dane is under interrogation after their police captain, Jackie, was recently ambushed and killed by two masked attackers. Moments before she is gunned down, she sends a message to someone and quietly accepts what is about to happen. The investigator asks what she had been pursuing, and Dane replies that she may have tracked down a large amount of money. FBI agent Del Byrne, together with his partner, begins questioning officers from the department, Detective Mike Numalolo and Sergeant J.D. Byrne, who is also his brother. They believe there may be corruption within the department. This accusation angers J.D., and he refuses to cooperate, instead criticizing the way their investigation is being handled. Del then points out the circumstances that led to Dane being promoted. J.D. remains unfazed and claims Dane earned the promotion after enduring the death of his son and a painful divorce. J.D. then brings up the VCAT unit, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Team, which was shut down and whose members were arrested due to serious misconduct, claiming that higher-ups were responsible for ruining it. In response, Del raises the issue of J.D.'s past relationship with Jackie. J.D. denies it, though the agents already know the truth. Del suggests that Jackie herself might have been involved in corruption, which enrages J.D. Memories of her begin to flash through his mind. Del continues by mentioning that Jackie was carrying a gun that actually belonged to J.D. J.D. completely loses control and lunges at Del. Other officers rush in as Dane casually remarks that the two brothers are simply fighting again. The group pulls them apart. J.D. is later in the restroom when Del approaches him again. They talk about how the FBI really has no clear leads and seems to be wasting everyone's time. Dane sighs and admits he has grown to hate being a cop, lying awake every night wondering how much of his life has already passed and how little time remains. J.D. walks away while repeating something Jackie often used to say, "Just stay alive long enough to see the next surprise." The officers are spending time in their usual hangout area near the parking lot when J.D. joins them. They start teasing him about the fight he had with his brother earlier. At the same time, Dane receives a message on his phone about a stash house packed with cash somewhere in Hialeah. He lowers the phone, and when his home screen appears, memories of his son suddenly overwhelm him. Back in the parking lot, the district attorney arrives with a truck. Stepping out is their boss Mateo, who is also a close friend of J.D., and he is annoyed because they constantly occupy his parking space. At that moment Dane walks over and greets him. He pulls out a Crime Stoppers tip from his pocket about the large amount of cash hidden in Hialeah. They need to move immediately, and they will also require their money-sniffing dog. Numa asks how much money they are expecting, and Dane answers that it's roughly $250,000. Soon Mike arrives and asks if the location really is in Hialeah. He wonders if they shouldn't simply hand the case to the local police. Dane responds that he doesn't trust the local department at all. Mike then asks again about the amount of money, and this time Dane says it's about $150,000. The team heads out and eventually reaches a dead-end location. Lolo brings the dog out, while J.D. worries about the search warrant since it isn't signed by a judge and the homeowner would normally have to allow them inside voluntarily. Dane says he will find some kind of legal excuse, and they head toward the door. The dog starts acting wildly, and Lolo notes that the behavior seems strange. She asks again how much money might be inside, and Dane now claims it's around $75,000. Lolo doesn't believe that figure and is convinced the amount must be far larger. They knock on the gate, and a woman comes forward. She introduces herself as Desi, and Dane explains that they received a Crime Stoppers tip about the place. He asks if anyone else is there with her or if there are any pets. She replies that she lives there alone. Dane tells her they need to come in and conduct a search. When Desi asks to see a warrant, they admit it is not an official one. She then firmly refuses to let them enter. They tell her that if she simply signs a refusal form, they will leave and head back. She feels suspicious about the situation, but J.D. assures her they are legitimate officers. She pauses to think for a moment before signing the paper, which ends up allowing them to enter right away. Desi looks irritated, yet there is nothing she can do anymore. The officers begin searching the place while keeping their weapons ready. Lolo lets the dog loose, and it rushes upstairs, eventually barking toward the roof where there is a small access point. Desi pretends she knows nothing and claims there are no drugs in the house. They tell her they are not looking for narcotics, they are searching for cash. Desi becomes nervous and now demands to see the warrant. Ignoring her request, they pull down a ladder. They climb up, only to find the attic extremely clean and well kept. They question her about it, but she insists she has never gone up there before. She explains that the place belongs to her grandmother and that she has only been staying here for a few months. J.D. then notices a wire on the wall that seems oddly loose. He twists and pulls it, which ends up opening a small hidden panel in the wall. Peeking inside, they spot several barrels. Mike and Numa bring in sledgehammers to break them open. Meanwhile, JD and Dane sit down to question Desi. She explains that she and her sister are currently fighting over ownership of the house, so she is staying here for the time being. She repeats again that she has no idea what is hidden up there, but JD says he has worked long enough to notice how her expression changed the moment she heard they were searching for money. They warn her that if illegal cash is found on her property, she could be held responsible. However, she argues that the house is still legally under her grandmother's name. The officers smile, realizing that it is actually a strong legal defense. Desi notices a tattoo on Dane's hand and asks him what AWEG means. He replies that it stands for, "Are we the good guys?" She then points at the other tattoo on his hand that says WAWW. He answers that it means, "We are and we will be." Not long after, someone calls them from upstairs. They go up and find multiple buckets stored there. They open one bucket and see a label indicating it holds $150,000. Dane checks inside and realizes there is actually $1.44 million in that single bucket. JD counts at least 14 more buckets and estimates the total could reach around 20 million. Mike asks if any of them have ever seen such a massive score before. Dane feels overwhelmed and tells everyone to go downstairs so he can think clearly. After a moment, he asks each of them to hand over their phones. They look shocked, but he collects all the devices, explaining that money of this size can lead people to do crazy things. He apologizes, yet still gathers everyone's phones, including Desi's. JD feels insulted, even though Dane chooses not to take his phone. Dane asks him to trust him and let him handle things. JD agrees and asks how much money the tip originally claimed was here. Dane answers that the report mentioned about $300,000. JD realizes they could soon be facing serious trouble. They head downstairs and decide they must start counting the cash right away, doing it in the garage in case any shots are fired. JD insists they should move the money out of there. But Dane argues that the first rule is always to count everything at the scene. JD says that rule doesn't make sense when the amount is this huge. Still, Dane refuses to change his mind, explaining that if even a single dollar goes missing, internal affairs will come after them. JD suggests they should contact the major. Dane rejects the idea too, saying involving him would only complicate things. JD then reveals that Jackie once mentioned hearing about a huge stash of cash somewhere around here. She might actually have known about this place. Dane replies that what truly matters now is deciding who they speak to while this is happening. Just then, Lolo walks in and asks if she can make a single phone call to her daughters. Dane apologizes and tells her he cannot allow that. Even though she begs him several times, he refuses, and she eventually walks away. JD says they should at least contact someone so they have backup ready. But Dane insists this is his operation and he will handle it however he wants. While they argue, Desi calls out from the other room, warning them they are making a serious mistake. She tells them to just grab whatever money they want and leave before things turn bad for everyone involved. At that moment, Mike reports that a police cruiser is driving toward them. Dane and JD step outside to deal with it. They signal the car to shut off its lights. After a tense moment of silence, the vehicle finally turns them off. The officers inside are from the Halia Police Department and want to know why they were never informed about this situation. Dane reminds them that he outranks them and expects them to follow his orders. Suddenly, JD recognizes one of the officers as a former member of the corrupt VCAT unit. The officer pretends he has no idea who JD is, and the patrol car soon drives away. JD explains that those officers were suspended before but somehow got reinstated through the police union. Still, he believes they probably do not know about the hidden money. Otherwise, JD says they would already be dead. They decide to arm themselves with guns and protective vests in case an attack happens. Meanwhile, the others carry all the buckets down into the garage. Mike looks confused and begins wondering what exactly they are doing. After all, they still have not reported anything to the department. Lolo tells him to relax and calm down. Mike then stands up and moves the car, saying it should face the doorway to block incoming bullets. JD and Dane climb inside the vehicle. Dane apologizes again to Lolo for refusing to let her make that phone call. She shrugs it off and says it is not a big deal. Dane opens the buckets and explains they will trust the labeled ones but must count every bucket without a label. Meanwhile, Mike is sent outside to watch for anyone approaching. Once outside, he pulls out a hidden phone and secretly sends a text. In the message he says they have hit a huge jackpot and nobody has reported it to command. He adds that things could soon get messy. Dane continues questioning Desi. She reveals that she has received several mysterious phone calls from people mentioning the hidden cash. She says strangers often came in and out of the house, but she never asked any questions. Dane then asks why she suggested they leave with whatever money they could take. She explains that someone on the phone instructed her to tell them exactly that. She adds that the callers never intended for them to take all the money, only some of it. By checking her records, Dane discovers that Desi once worked as an informant for the DEA. She previously dated a cartel member whom she eventually turned against by reporting him. JD walks in and learns about this. They begin to suspect that she might be the one who submitted the Crime Stoppers tip. If that is true, she could legally receive up to 20% of the seized cash. Suddenly, the phone rings and JD answers it. A distorted voice on the other end tells him they have 30 minutes to leave the house. The caller says no one should die over $150,000. Then the call abruptly ends. JD asks Dane to speak with him in private. Desi panics and says whoever called is going to kill everyone. Inside another room, JD confronts Dane. He reminds him that earlier he said the tip involved $300,000. But the caller clearly mentioned $150,000. JD demands to know why Dane has been lying. Dane repeats that this is his operation and he will control it however he sees fit. That answer frustrates JD because his own career is also on the line. Desi quietly listens to their argument from nearby. JD tells Dane he has been acting strange all day. He says he has known him long enough to recognize something is off. JD then asks to see the Crime Stoppers tip for himself. Dane claims he does not have it with him. Angry, JD storms out and says Dane should call the major, or he will do it himself. Meanwhile, Lolo and Numa continue counting the money. Lolo says she earns only $80,000 a year, yet in return she gets shot at, spit on, punched, kicked, and constantly insulted. She picks up a bundle of cash and says that this small amount is all she needs. She adds that just this much money could make her life far easier. Outside, JD calls Mateo, who has just arrested several dealers. JD explains the whole situation to him and admits he is worried about Dane. He also tells him that they still have not informed command about anything. Mateo becomes concerned and says that does not sound right. JD replies that ever since Jackie's investigation started, Dane has not been acting like himself. Mateo reminds him that the entire department already knew JD and Jackie were involved. He points out that JD lost the woman he loved, while Dane ended up taking her position. JD insists it was never personal. But Mateo asks what if Jackie had been searching for that stash house and Dane discovered it. He suggests that the money might be the price tied to the police captain. JD dismisses the idea, saying Dane would never kill Jackie. However, Mateo reminds him that Dane is drowning in hospital bills, lost his son to cancer, went through a divorce, and now has almost nothing left. Under those circumstances, Mateo says, a person might do anything. Mateo adds that they are finishing their current operation and will arrive there within 30 minutes. Meanwhile, Dane walks over to Lolo and Numa. Desi secretly listens to their conversation. Dane tells them he understands that everyone wants a piece of this money, and he also expects to benefit from it. Outside, Mike suddenly notices that every house in the neighborhood turns its lights on at the same time. Right in front of him, one light keeps blinking repeatedly. JD walks over, and Mike points it out to him. They begin wondering why they have not seen a single person outside anywhere. There are no cars around either. Mike asks if everything is still under control inside the house. JD answers that everything is fine. Just then, the blinking light flashes again, and JD watches carefully. He realizes it is actually Morse code and begins decoding it. The message spells out the word pigs. JD decides to go check the situation himself. Mike heads back toward the house and reads a message saying the team is gathering and will move soon. JD walks away while talking on the phone, telling someone that the score is about $150,000. He leaves the area, and Mike enters through another door. Desi tells Mike that the others are planning to steal the money. She explains everything she overheard them discussing. Mike has already contacted command himself, reporting that the amount involved is only $150,000. At that moment, Dane enters the room, and Mike becomes tense. Dane asks him what he is doing inside the house. Mike says JD told him to report the Morse code and that JD went to investigate it. Dane asks him to show where it is happening, and Mike starts walking. In the garage, the women continue stacking the bags of cash. Desi suddenly shouts that they should just arrest her. She says she would rather sit in jail than stay here. Soon the phone rings, and Numa answers it. The same distorted voice returns, saying people will start dying in 10 minutes. The caller orders them to pack up immediately and leave. Inside the house, JD notices that the television and several electronic devices are turned on. Dane follows Mike and asks what he was talking about with Desi. Mike replies that she is simply frightened. He then shows Dane the house. Dane quietly stands behind him. Dane suddenly asks Mike if he is secretly informing on them. Mike laughs and asks if Dane is trying to scare him. Dane then tells him to go back and help the others finish counting the money. Mike leaves, clearly nervous about what might happen. Once he walks away, he feels relieved and pulls out his phone. He sends a voice message saying the others plan to steal the score and that they need to act quickly. Meanwhile, while searching the house, JD receives a message confirming that no Crime Stoppers tip was ever submitted. JD keeps moving through the house when suddenly a shadow appears behind him holding a gun. Mike returns and assures Desi that nobody is going to hurt her. He heads toward the garage, but the door is locked. When they open it, they say it is locked so nobody can enter or leave. Mike finds it strange since they are the only ones inside. Suddenly, Dane walks in and hears about the phone call. Mike asks where JD is. Dane replies that they got separated. Right then, the lights suddenly shut off. Green laser beams cut through the darkness, followed by intense gunfire. They drop down for cover and begin shooting back. Desi collapses, struggling to stay alive. Lolo also falls after being struck by a bullet. The gunfire slowly begins to die down. Numa rushes to help her. Dane and Mike run outside and spot someone fleeing. They chase him, which leads them toward another house, where the shooting starts again. Meanwhile, Numa removes Desi's handcuffs so she can search for candles. Dane and Mike pursue the attackers until they reach the end of the area, but the suspects manage to escape. Soon another person runs toward them, attempting to say something. A moment later, JD arrives and signals them to stop. He explains that he was the one flashing the porch light as a lookout. He admits he works for the cartel, but says they were not the ones shooting at them. He then connects them to his boss on the phone. The boss explains that none of their men carried out the attack. He says they have no desire to take that money. According to him, this whole situation is like a game of chess. Sometimes they win, and sometimes they lose. Tonight, he says, the police are the ones who came out on top. He adds that Jackie's death has already damaged their business enough. They head back to the garage and ask about Lolo's condition. She was only grazed by a bullet and is going to be fine. They inform everyone that the cartel was not responsible for the shooting. Numa then says that means the money is truly unclaimed. JD asks if she is seriously suggesting they take the money. Lolo replies that he clearly has no idea how much child support she has to pay. JD then reveals that there was never any Crime Stoppers report at all, and that Dane invented the story to steal the score. He explains that Jackie had known about it too. Dane immediately becomes angry. He accuses JD of being involved with VCAT since he recognized one of the officers earlier. JD disappeared for 30 minutes, so Dane thinks he could be responsible for the attack. JD fires back, saying many people already suspect Jackie was murdered by someone inside the department. He reminds Dane how he keeps saying he hates being a cop now, suggesting he might have become a cop killer. Dane lunges at him, and the others rush in to separate them. JD storms out of the garage. Dane tells the rest to finish counting the cash quickly so they can leave. Mike immediately steps outside and locks himself inside the bathroom. He searches for his phone but cannot find it anywhere. Meanwhile, JD speaks with Mateo, who is on his way but not bringing the entire team since most officers decided to go home. Mateo asks how much money they are dealing with. JD answers that it is around $20 million, which shocks Mateo. Soon they finish counting all the cash. Dane writes the total on a piece of paper and shows it to the others, telling them to remember the number. At that moment, the phone starts ringing again. Now they begin discussing how to move the money since most of the vehicles outside are destroyed. However, the car parked inside the garage is still intact. Dane asks them to check if Desi has the keys. Right then, the candles light up the house. They grab the bags full of money and prepare to leave. Mateo arrives at the scene. Dane looks surprised to see him. Eventually, they begin loading the bags into Mateo's truck. Dane tells Numa to remain behind with Desi and Lolo to wait for the fire department. Lolo argues about the decision, but Dane ignores her protest. Dane notices JD nearby and becomes irritated because he had called Mateo. Another argument is about to start, but Mateo steps in and stops it. Before long, they all climb into the truck. The vehicles begin moving out. Inside the truck, both Dane and JD quietly draw their guns. The bags of money are sitting between them. Dane asks Mateo where they are taking the cash. Mateo tells him the destination. JD says he will call the major and have him meet them there, explaining that Dane already contacted him earlier. Dane replies that he did call him, but Mike suddenly says that never happened. Mike adds that the major may know about the score but does not know the real amount. Dane asks him how he knows that information. Mike snaps back, accusing Dane of planning to steal everything himself. He says Desi told him that Dane informed the major on the phone that the total was only $150,000. Dane reveals that Desi only heard what he wanted her to hear. He explains that he staged a fake plan to steal the money and spoke about it near Lolo and Numa so Desi could overhear. He knew she would pass that information to Mike because Mike had been mostly separated from the group. However, Mike had already heard the number 150,000 even before they arrived at the house. Dane says he intentionally gave each person a different amount earlier. So when the caller warned that nobody needed to die over $150,000, it proved that the information came from Mike. He also mentions that JD's phone ended up with Mike when he stopped JD from fighting earlier. Dane admits he has been lying all day. But he says Mike is not nearly as good at lying as Dane has been when deceiving JD for so long. Dane explains that before they went to the house, he told JD that Jackie had given him the information about the cash before she died. JD asked him why he never told him about it earlier. Dane says the plan would only work if JD truly doubted him. He realized the truth the moment he heard the $150,000 mentioned during the phone call. But he still needed to figure out exactly who he could trust. JD then asks Mateo where the police radios are. He wonders why they have not heard any dispatch updates while transporting so much money. He also asks who is actually monitoring their movement. Mateo says he wanted to keep everything quiet and under the radar. They then ask who is driving the vehicle. Mateo laughs it off and angrily curses at them. Mike decides to stop arguing and grabs the phone from JD. He calls the number he has been secretly texting. Right away, Mateo's phone begins to ring. Without hesitation, Mateo pulls out his gun and fires at Mike, the bullet grazing past his ear. The vehicle suddenly halts, and the driver panics and grabs a gun to shoot as well. But JD quickly stops him. During the struggle, both of them fall down while Mateo still holds the weapon. At that moment, Mateo reveals the truth. He admits that they were the ones who murdered Jackie because she had discovered their plan to steal the $20 million stash. Just then, the Major calls JD. JD answers and switches the call to speaker mode. He explains that he has already shared their location with them and everything is set. Soon their vehicles come to a stop as they reach a federal roadblock. Dell is waiting there and immediately orders them to step out and get down. The driver panics, while Mateo tells everyone they should stick together. He suggests they can split the money between them. JD reminds him that the phone is still on speaker. At that moment, Mike manages to grab his gun and fires at Mateo. The shot sends Mateo crashing against the door. Mike grabs one of the bags and jumps out of the vehicle. Mateo jumps into another car and speeds away while the others keep shooting. JD gets into his brother's car and starts chasing him. Mike runs across the grassy field with Dane chasing right behind him. During the chaos, Mateo crashes, causing the bag to fall out. Meanwhile, JD manages to catch up to him. Mateo continues driving as JD stays close behind. Eventually, Dane catches Mike off guard and knocks him to the ground. At the same time, JD forces Mateo onto a deserted road and crashes his car. JD slowly approaches him with a gun in his hand. Even then, Mateo offers to give JD a share of the money. JD asks if that is supposed to be the price of a police captain's life. Then JD and Dane open the bags to reveal that they are empty. JD pulls the trigger and shoots Mateo. Dane chooses not to kill Mike and instead arrests him. Meanwhile, the others have already secured the real money inside the buckets and are transporting it using the garage car. They bring it to the command center where the counting process begins. The Major asks Lolo and Numa for the amount and collects the note from Dane. When the counting is finished, the total perfectly matches the number they gave. Later, the four officers stand outside finally relaxing. They see Desi with the agent she previously worked with. She is officially released. They all exchange hugs before parting ways for the day. JD apologizes to his brother, and the two share an embrace. Desi then walks over to Dane. After noticing the tattoo again, she asks him, "Are we the good guys?" Dane says that was the last thing his son ever said to him. She replies, "We are, and we always will be." Dane explains that those were also the final words he told his son. His son had passed away from cancer at the age of 10. They share a hug before saying goodbye. Later, Dane and JD sit together at the beach, thinking back on the chaotic night. Suddenly, they hear a woman calling out the name Jackie, which turns out to be her dog's name. JD smiles softly as he remembers Jackie while they watch the sunrise. You have been watching the recap of the 2026 film The Rip. For more recaps like this, make sure to stay subscribed to the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, you might also like this one.